Ready?
Yeah, whatever.
Hello, I'm Andrew Eggert, and I am the stage director for Bluebeard's Castle at Opera Omaha.
And I'm Noulin-Merat, and I am the set designer and costume designer for Bluebeard's Castle.
And where are we and what are we doing?
Well, we are here in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. We're at the shop where the set for the production is being constructed from Julia's design.
Right. So today we looked at samples, we looked at the selections of the doors that we're playing with, and we kind of were brainstorming about some of the changes also we're considering on making.
So we looked at technical drawings and paint samples and went and actually started playing around with some of the set pieces.
Yeah.
So tell us about the opera, Bluebeard's Castle.
Well, Bluebeard's Castle is one of the absolute masterpieces of 20th century operas from very early in the 20th century by Bela Bartok. It is just an incredibly dark, wonderfully psychological work that is really a canvas for interpretation.
Right. I don't know how you follow that.
Well, describe the music of it.
Well, the music is, it's on the one hand a very intimate work, because there are only two characters that sing, Bluebeard and his wife, Judith. But on the other hand, it is an enormously broad canvas musically. Bartok wrote it for an enormous symphonic orchestra. So although it's a very intimate tale, the musical language is very broad and enormous in its scale. And
a bit about the story. It's not necessarily the blow-by-blow synopsis, but
yeah.
What happens? What is the action of this?
Well, the story is that Bluebeard has brought home his newest wife, Judith. They come into his castle, and it's really the time where Judith is getting to explore this world of Bluebeard's castle. But what we discover is that the castle is filled with secrets, and that rather than it being kind of a literal place, the castle is actually Bluebeard's life. It's his inner world and his soul that she is exploring. So it's a very symbolist, very much a drama of the inner world and the psyche.
But it's also, I think, she's testing the limits of their love in a way. It's their first night there, and she's seeing how far she can push him, and that is physically represented by the castle, I think.
Yes.
So we were kind of very intrigued and wanted to see how we could represent that without it feeling so chronological.
Yes.
In a way, steps.
How do you bring this to life on stage if this is an inner world, a relationship, and a psychological and more abstract? How do you bring that to life?
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about the design. We decided we would take this idea of a doorway as something that is a passageway into the castle, but it's also a way into the personality or into the psyche. Right. And in the opera, there are 7 doors that are opened. Well, we took the image of the door as the basis for constructing an entire castle.
Right. And kind of by multiplying that, then it allows us to peel each layer and to explore that. But I also think, because we talk a lot about what psychology and what can we see of the psychology, and a lot of that is manifested by when she goes through each doors, then we see the world transform around them. And that's very exciting to us, I think. So.
And we've decided to construct the set out of doors, and we are in the process of selecting the doors themselves. Yes. We're looking at actual salvaged doors that have history, that have a sort of hidden life within them, and we're taking this multiplication of doors and constructing an entire architecture out of the doors themselves. I think it'll be quite striking to see visually.
You two have worked together before. What is your process like? Can you give us sort of a behind-the-scenes look at director, designer?
We laugh. No, I'm kidding.
We explore the piece together. We always start with the text and the music.
Yes.
We
brainstorm together, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of, what do you find so exciting about it? And what do you want to communicate to the audience? What do you want the audience to feel, but not necessarily tell them? And then based on that, we kind of figure out our storyline.
Yeah, and we actually spend a lot of time, even before we're with a full rendering of the set, going through the opera.
Right.
And we go through it not one time, but multiple passes through. So we're telling the story together, and we start to find ways to turn dramatic actions into a visual reality, and vice versa, so that by the time we are looking at a model box or at renderings on paper, we already have a sense of how we want the space to transform and what points of the narrative we want to hit with the design.
I think also this one had a little bit of a different process because we kind of ended up working backwards a little bit, in the sense that because there's such a clear progression in the storyline, but we didn't want the audience to feel like they were going, for the last door, essentially.
Right.
So we kind of stripped everything out of the way and then try to play with what could be so interesting and maintain the attention. So I think we played with that a lot too.
Yep.
Well, even going back out a bit, and maybe not even specifically about Bluebeard's Castle, but you are both young people, and so what is it about opera that intrigues you, or why opera?
Well, for me, I came to opera through my love of the theater and my love of music. And early in my life, I did the two separately. But I discovered more and more that for me, finding a way to fuse the two would really speak to all of my interests.
Right. I think for me, opera is, well, first of all, it's the collage of all the arts coming together, which is very important to me. I love that in terms of scenically, it's also an installation, so it is a living organism within the storytelling, and how does it participate in it. And what I really love about opera audience too is a lot of the stories, they come in and they already know it. So they already know the synopsis or the libretto, a little bit like a Shakespeare play where they already expect things to happen, and then they're so much more willing to go on the journey with you because there's much more risk you can take in opera than in theater.
I also think that opera is, when you look at all of the different genres of theater, it's collaboration on the grandest scale, and I think both Julia and I thrive on those kinds of conversations and on that kind of collaboration. So, we will be collaborating through our process, and then you begin collaborating with the singers and the conductor, all of the other designers who are involved. And there's something very satisfying about the ideas that can come out of that kind of work, and cannot come out of the studio working alone when you're dealing with opera. It really is a whole community.
Right. And what I really enjoy, I know I talk about this a lot when I talk about Andrew, but I think we challenge each other a lot. We'll say, what about this? And we're like, wait a minute. And then we turn it around. And then, so I think it's really exciting, and that we're never satisfied with the first easy answer. And then we just keep pushing each other. So.
Yeah, and finding the deeper meaning in the music, in the words, the subtext. I think opera, it invites that kind of delving deeper into, this is literally what's being said, but the music makes you feel another level of the character.
But we never, what I like about this collaboration is we never stray away from the story. Sometimes I go see shows and I'm like, why is this happening on Mars? And we create, in a way, our Mars, but we are very respectful of all the pieces.
Oh, very much so. I mean, I think what we want to do is bring everything that we sense inside the material out. We're coming from a profound love and respect for the material, and it's because of that we're trying to unlock it rather than just superficially do something, but really...
We're not opposing a concept onto something, but
Was there anything about Bluebeard's Castle in particular, you're talking about, unlocking the truth, the story, or subtext of what's going on. Anything about Bluebeard's Castle, because it seems just ripe with that sort of.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it was a big discovery when we realized it wasn't as much about the doors than to give each other permission. And then to allowing one person into each other's.
Yes, the characters giving each other permission.
Yes.
So it's a sort of push and pull in the drama where they're asking one another and granting one another. And that was the thing that allowed us to take the story and say, well, if that's really what this is about, this is something that exists in every relationship, this kind of push and pull and negotiation, and that we can put it into a space that doesn't feel like a cold ancient castle, but actually is something that is a labyrinth that tells us more about what it's like in life when you go about interacting with those that you know and love and think you know. And I think that those twists and turns in the labyrinth of the story of Bluebeard's Castle are what were so interesting to us and we really grabbed onto in the labyrinth-type shape that we ultimately built into the set.
Into the design. It's also the relationship of the audience with the story, I think, is pretty unique in this, just because they're almost accomplices, when you start, and then so they know and they can sort of anticipate a little bit of what's going to happen, but then there are all these twists and turns.
Yes, and it's not it's not a journey that's mapped for the audience. These secrets and surprises are discovered along with Judith, along with the characters of the opera. The audience finds out each of the secrets. So we wanted to have ways that we would take this space, this castle space we're creating, and make it a transformable environment.
Right.
Well, you're working with Samuel Ramey, Shay Thomson. Any thoughts about the artists you're working with?
Well, absolutely. Samuel Ramey is one of the greatest bass baritones of our time. This is one of his signature roles. And I am very much looking forward to the collaboration with him, bringing our production to the table to someone with such a deep and long history with this material. This character is someone who is rich and wise in that way, so I'm very excited about discovering the piece through that type of collaboration. And Shay Thomson is someone I've worked with before at Chicago Opera Theater. She's a magnificent artist, a terrific actress, and I think will be a wonderful pair together, both Sam and Shay.
I think a really great anecdote also is our lighting designer, Alan Hahn. His first opera he's ever seen was Bluebeard's Castle, and Sam Ramey was performing in it. So for him, it's a huge treat. He's very excited. So to actually, contribute to that.
So what would you say to people who, I've never heard of Bluebeard's Castle, I am afraid of things I don't know. Why should they come to this event?
Roger, you need to answer that question.
I was like, no, I'm kidding.
I think that it is a piece that they may not be familiar with, but that within there are many hidden gems musically. It's not a piece that pushes you away and is kind of cold and cerebral music. When you think about difficult modern music, that's the stereotype. Bluebeard's Castle is the opposite. Every one of the 7 doors is a symphonic tone poem that just pulls you in. It's lush. It's unexpectedly, the colors in the music are constantly like a kaleidoscope. And I think that is the thing that, whether you've listened to this score 100 times or you're coming to it fresh, the music just arrests you. You can't help but give in to that. And that's what I that's what I really feel about the psychological level of the story too, is that even if you're familiar with what's going to happen, in a great performance, it just grabs onto you and holds you all the way through that seventh door.
I think also with this piece, I mean, I think you said it's very modern feeling, but for somebody who's never been to the opera, it's very approachable in terms of the storyline. These are people you immediately grab onto and you're rooting for one of them. And I constantly find myself like, oh, I'm on his side. No, I'm on her side. So I think that's something we're all familiar with. And also I think it's, because we're integrating so many of the different art mediums, it's very exciting visually to see. Something that's also very unique is that we have the orchestra on stage, which that's very exciting to us because we don't always get to do that. And to see also that relationship happen on stage. And
the orchestra is integrated into the design. They're actually inside the castle, and we have action that is in front of the orchestra, also behind the orchestra, and moving around the space. So it really does feel like the marriage between the theater piece that we're telling and the music being a presence that's part of that story.
And for that reason, because it's such a big orchestra, Bluebeard's Castle is not that often staged. It's most often presented in concert version. So actually even really big opera lovers probably have never seen a staging of it. So I think that's also very exciting.
It makes it a treat to see the piece done fully, realized.
Can you speak just briefly about, you were talking about this production is a real combination of different forms. What specifically can we look forward to?
Well, we were talking earlier about how much we love opera and how it joins all the mediums, and I think this is a great one because we have dance, because we actually have ballet dancers in the piece. We have the orchestra on stage with us. We have an actual installation. We have the live singers. And then we're also, our lighting designer is going to create all kinds of sculptural effects in collaboration. We have a video designer, Katie Tucker.
Yeah, so it really is multimedia. We have theater, we have music, we have dance, we have an actor, we have video art and lighting design. So it is a complete experience for all the senses.
Anything else that you want to say about this?
I like the complete experience.
That was very good.
We're not feeding that.
Anything about Omaha? You've spent a little time in Omaha.
Oh yeah.
Omaha's wonderful. Omaha's been great. I mean, it's just a very vibrant community.
Yes.
Gotten to know a lot about the arts in Omaha, and it's a really exciting project to bring to the audiences in Omaha.
I think, I was so thrilled when we first went and we met everyone from like every single community of artists, and that was just an incredible experience and pretty unique, I have to say. That actually everybody welcomes you and wants you to visit their artist facilities and whatnot. So that to me was incredible.
Good. Anything you want to know, Steve?
No, I think I'm good.
Roger, you want to hop on camera? Next time, spicy.
Yeah. No, wait. I have a question. You sit. I just got the big eyes.
This is it.
So you've worked with Andrew before.
I have.
This is one of the first pieces that you bring in, you create everything from the ground up. So why Bluebeard with Andrew?
Well, Andrew he's both a man of the theater and an amazing musician, and he's just so smart. And when you're tackling a project like this, I think you need someone who's sensitive to all of these disciplines. And Andrew has demonstrated that before in many of the projects we worked together on. And what else I wanted to say?
I want to say, oh shucks.
Well, Andrew's a great collaborator,
Yeah.
and this piece is a huge collaboration with a number of organizations in Omaha, with Opera Omaha. It's a big undertaking. We're working with some very well-known artists, and I'm confident that Andrew's going to lead a very positive, collaborative, and just fascinating production. So.
Yay! Great!